The most perfect day is one which begins with sunlight streaming in the window, and it is a day which just welcomes me, where everything has that kind of openness that it says, come, live, do, be, let's get on with it. What I'm trying to do is to invent, create pieces of fabric that somehow are raised in space so that people look at them differently than they have ever looked at fabric before. And that seems like such a simple thing, but it's such a grand and broad objective. Right now, the primary thing that's on my mind is what I'm making in the studio. I like being with it. I'm looking at it a lot. I'm thinking about it quite a lot, both day and night. It's kind of growing. I'm seeing it develop. And I just hope that we come to some sort of conclusion where both it and I are satisfied in the end. And I won't know until it's up on the wall. The opportunity to work here at Renaissance Center was really a very special one. I had never approached a situation that was as massive in scale as this one was. I can remember walking into the building the first time and looking into the space while it was still full of scaffolding and workmen. They were pouring concrete and so on, and I looked around and I thought to myself, my gosh, what could Portman possibly have in mind for this project? The greatest difficulty of the space was that as I looked at it, it was sculpturally very active. And so the problem was basically to develop a work that would be compatible with the sculpture that already existed. What I attempted to do was simply to give some substance to the air and the light in the space. And I thought of it very much as dust particles floating through space. And while I was working in my studio, one day it occurred to me, why not work with the idea somewhat like taking a book and cutting off the binding and simply throwing it off of one of those balconies up above? What would happen to it, and how would the light respond to those pages as they fell through space, and how would the air affect it, and how would those pages eventually find their way to the floor, which is the pool below? And in the end, what I'm so pleased with is that I feel as though I've created a work which gives dimension to the activity and the life and the air and all that happens between the skylight above and the pool at the base. What I'm attempting to do in the Xerox piece that I did is to find a place for a visual and mental focus that in some ways becomes a refuge from the chaos of the world around, which invites a viewer to sit down and indulge in the experience of seeing. There's something that happens where your arms feel longer, or you feel taller, or your eyes are led to see space as you haven't realized before. If you see light as you haven't seen it. One of the reasons I work with light-reflective materials is because I want to somehow dissolve any sense of concrete volume, any sense of mass. I want to dissolve it with light. Whenever I approach any of the works that I'm doing, I simply ask, what can I do to provide another dimension in the space in which the object will finally be used? I am intrigued with making something which expands beyond itself. An image which is almost as elusive as a hologram, wherein there is substance created out of nothingness. And the substance is constantly elusive as light is elusive. It's an exciting idea to explore. I am making a line out of something that is not linear. I'm using planes of fabric to create a line, and yet there is no point where those planes of fabric are touching one another. And it is only up to the viewer to discover those lines, and he has to do that by walking by the piece and seeing that there is a point in which those planes become linear. There is a point in which the production of 300 yards of fabric is very impractical as far as my own time involvement is concerned. So when I discovered the Churchill Weavers in Berea, Kentucky, they immediately inspired me to think about what I could do in conjunction with their organization, their processes, techniques, etc. They are people who live in the area around Berea. Most of them have lived all of their lives in that area. 40 people who are working together at the business of hand weaving and making a living from it. They produce all kinds of objects that are useful and that are sold in the department stores around the country, things that have been traditionally made on the hand looms. Here, if you hold on to the end of this cord, in most of the work that they produce, it's very routine. That a woman goes up to the loom at 8 o'clock in the morning, she begins weaving, and she's weaving something that she has woven every day for the last, well, not that long, but in a production weaving situation, that's the way it works. One weaves a lot of one kind of thing. And so it's nice to have that pacing interrupted by another activity. And then I can show you off of one of these lengths of ribbon. I've prepared this indicating the sections that are to be woven corresponding with a letter to the number on the sample itself. So it's just a matter then for the weaver to follow this. Just pin this on the warp, and as you weave through each section, this will be running along with it, and that will determine what we need. If you take these at random, then the weaver will have to go to the samples too frequently, and I think it'll slow the whole process down.
So we work from these here.
Have you had a chance to see any of the projects installed?
No, I haven't.
We've got to get you up there sometime.
I haven't.
Mr. Cody was telling me he went to Houston recently and saw the piece there. Do you go down to Miami Beach occasionally?
I haven't been quite a while.
That's where this one's going.
Miami Beach.
Yeah. You're attaching pulleys up here, and where are they going to be attached?
They're going to be hanging right at your, see where your bolt's hanging down?
Right.
One will be there, see, hanging from that brace that's up on there.
Okay.
We'll have to take it out and work the scaff that way, and have this on the ground so the scaff will be free to pull that piece up.
Do it on this side. That means that the longest cord down here will come right at the edge, and then the second one will be 1 inch, and then the third one will be 2 inches. This one, we have to make a change here, because you see, with that bracket up in there, up on top, we had to move those cords in. What is that, 3 inches? So I think we'll have to move each of these hooks over 3 inches so that that panel comes over in the right place. I am concerned with adding to the expressiveness of the space in which people are. And I don't see my works being only sculpture which is placed in the space of architecture. I would like the work to find some compatibility with the architecture so that there is a sense of meshing of the two. What I would like is to develop something surrounding the person who is using the space in such a way that they feel a sense of adventure, which is peculiar to the particular space in which they are passing through. And that's an ultimate objective of mine, to be able to create works which accompany the activities of life, but which provide a special sense of focus and a real source of exhilaration when one takes the time to sit down and look at them and to be with them. That's absolutely special